that, I want to introduce the women of Local 3. Our second speaker will be Laura Kelber, worked in the construction division of Local 3 of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers from 1981 to 1999. During this time, she acted as a co-chair of the Women Electricians, a rank and file club for women of Local 3. She's currently working, I can't wait to see this, on a feature film based on her experiences as an electrician.
I'm also really nervous. Apologize, I'm kind of weak too. I thought for the people in the audience who aren't electricians or family members of electricians, I would just give some idea of what the work is like. I'll just talk about the types of jobs I was on. I worked on construction sites, building renovations, stores, offices, the subway system, sewage plants, that place where the garbage trucks transfer the garbage to barges, and rich people's apartments. I spent weeks chopping holes in concrete floors and ceilings with a waist-high hammer gun, hooking up dishwashers in a high-rise apartment building, working in a crawl space in an East Side boutique, and laying 3-inch galvanized pipe in trenches in Prospect Park. I worked on a toxic gas detection system in a sewage plant, and I installed an alarm system in Steven Spielberg's apartment. I worked on low-voltage lighting in a video studio. I worked on a live service panel in a pharmacy in Queens. I installed lights on a warehouse roof in the Bronx in the rain. I installed an outdoor temporary electrical service panel for a construction site during a snowstorm. The variety is what makes the work so wonderful, but it's also what makes it so hard for women. One day you're on a job where you've earned respect for your skills, and the next day you're sent to a job where no one will even talk to you. I met a lot of good men who were willing to train me and treat me like an equal co-worker. But I've run into plenty of miserable assholes who did everything they could to discourage me or any woman from working in the trade. Let's see. I'll tell you about two different jobs I was on. On one, the foreman followed me around with a girl-on-girl porn magazine saying, "Is this what you do? Because I'd love to watch." I complained to the shop steward, his drinking buddy, who could barely keep a straight face. The situation was resolved by transferring me off the job against my will. On another job, I showed up and the foreman said he'd never worked with a girl before. I told him I was a journeywoman, and he told me that all I could do was get the coffee and help unload the trucks because the other work was for skilled electricians. I quit that job. The job with the porn was my first job in 1981. The other job was late in 1999. In 18 and a half years, discrimination was as rampant as ever. When I quit that job, I quit the industry. I'd had enough. What kept me going, though, for the 18 years was the other women, Cynthia and Melinda and others. We banded together in a loose-knit group called Women Electricians. It was the only rank-and-file group in the local at the time. And there may have been one for black men early on, but that dissolved, as did ours eventually. What we did was we banded together after work to give each other emotional support and try to affect change in our union. We'd read OSHA regulations and sexual harassment laws and write letters and petitions to our union leaders. Mostly we'd listen to each other's stories, cry when we needed to, and have a beer or two. Some of the women were hostile towards us, afraid of being associated with troublemakers. They didn't have problems on the jobs. We saw some of those same women break down and cry later on because it turned out they did have problems with harassment and discrimination, lack of bathroom and changing facilities and locker rooms, and locker rooms wallpapered with pornography. we couldn't do much more than listen because we had no power. We were able to get a weekend seminar at the union's estate in Long Island, and we would have workshops on stress. We'd have workshops on reading control wiring diagrams, on safety equipment, but we really, we couldn't bring in the numbers of women. I had a lawsuit against the hiring hall on pregnancy discrimination. It went, I sued in federal court, and it went to trial in Long Island instead of Brooklyn. And I've always thought the union had something to do with that, getting it sent to Long Island, because when you're talking discrimination, I think a Brooklyn jury is probably friendlier than a Long Island jury. So it was a jury trial for several days, and we lost. And on appeal, we won the right to a new trial, and at which point the hiring hall settled with me. And it was a tough situation going back to work after losing, but I did, and I found in talking to the men that a lot of them supported what I'd done. And I think our women's group pushed boundaries that, the men were afraid to push themselves. And we weren't just a women's group, we were a rank and file group. And I'm proud of what we did. Let's see. What would make a difference in how women are treated? Our women electricians group once had a joint panel with some old-time Rosie the Riveters. And one of them was my aunt, I'm proud to say. And they listened to our stories, and they were shocked because they hadn't experienced any of the kinds of harassment and discrimination we'd experienced. They said they were treated like patriots for helping the war effort. They were mostly women, and there were, the few grumpy older men who were working in the shipyards with them were outnumbered. And they said they had fun. What we've never been able to have, as Francine said, is the numbers. And nothing will change without the numbers. And the unions and contractors aren't going to bring in those numbers. It's only going to be the federal government that can do that. It took the federal government to change the Jim Crow laws in the South. And it's going to take a real federal push to change things here. And it didn't happen under Clinton, and I don't think it's going to happen under Obama. So I'm a little pessimistic. Sorry about that. More,
Realistic.
Positive. Do I have to quickly say one thing we've been focusing on locally, though, is the Department of Buildings had a ban on cigarette smoking on construction. So we were thinking that maybe it would be a good idea to approach them and suggest that they have a ban on sexist graffiti and pornography on construction jobs. And they could fine the hell out of any contractor who allowed it. So it would be a win thing for the city and a win thing for us. I think there are little things like that that can still be done, but without the numbers, nothing will really change. There is a fine on smoking.
So it's a win for the city because they'll make money, they'll generate money.
Okay, well, that's it. Cynthia.